What has happened to me? I can't make you or anyone else understand what it's like inside me. How could I explain why it's this way when I can't even explain it to myself? This is the story of Gregor Samsa, the central character in Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. An ordinary traveling salesman wakes up one morning to discover he is transformed into a grotesque insect-like creature. Trapped in a body that no longer reflects his humanity, he struggles to comprehend his new reality. Through this startling metamorphosis, Kafka reveals the harsh realities of human nature, the cruelty of society, the crushing weight of guilt and shame, and how even the closest of relationships can falter under pressure. It's a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about rejection, isolation, and the fragility of existence, themes that remain just as relevant in today's world. So, let's discuss deeper into Gregor Samsa's story and its reflection of modern struggles. The blend of absurd, surreal, and mundane gave rise to the adjective Kafkaesque. It's in human nature that, whenever a person faces struggles, they reach a fragile moment in life when they start questioning everything. This is exactly what Gregor Samsa experienced. While his situation was far more shocking and complicated, it doesn't change the universal truth of how humans deal with challenges in life. When Gregor transformed into a vermin, he began to ask questions. Why have I changed into this? Am I a burden on my family? Why can't I just live like other human beings? Why can't I be happy? These questions deeply affected him, haunting him throughout his transformation. His father used to beat him with a stick, and over time, everyone else in the family began ignoring him. As the isolation grew unbearable, Gregor eventually became a total nihilist. He found everything around him absurd and meaningless. There was nothing left to live for. His family seemed to want to get rid of him, and society wouldn't accept him because he was different. Feeling completely done with life, Gregor stopped eating. He no longer cared whether he lived or died. Franz Kafka is conveying a powerful message about how isolation can become a cruel force, pushing an individual into a state of depression and despair. Many of us have faced challenging moments in life where, at certain points, we feel utterly alone. In those moments, hope seems distant, and all that remains is despair. This is precisely the emotional state that Gregor Samsa enters into. He becomes rebellious, gradually losing his will to fight, and ultimately gives up on life. In the end, his only wish is for peace, which he finds in death. Gregor's isolation, however, should never have happened. Yet it did, and the driving force behind it was one fundamental factor: society, which I'll be discussing now. Gregor's alienation and isolation can be directly attributed to society. The way his sales officer treated him, and more importantly, the way his own family turned against him, pushed Gregor into a deep state of depression that ultimately led to his death. Initially, his sister Greta seemed to care for him, but this care appeared to stem more from her own ambitions than genuine affection. She hoped to pursue a career in music, something her parents would never have allowed. Greta took responsibility for cleaning Gregor's room and bringing him food. However, as time passed and she began to see Gregor as nothing more than a useless creature confined to a single room, she started distancing herself from him. One night, as she played the violin, Gregor, moved by the music, left his room to listen. By this time, the family had rented a portion of their house to 3 lodgers to earn money. When the lodgers saw Gregor and his room, they immediately decided to leave without paying rent. This incident further hardened the resentment his father and sister felt towards him. Greta, acting irrationally, argued with her father, suggesting that Gregor should have been abandoned and left to roam the world. Gregor's mother, however, remained quietly affectionate. She still saw him as her baby boy, but was unable to express her feelings openly. Despite this, the overwhelming hatred, ignorance, and rejection from everyone else worsened Gregor's condition, day by day. The frustration of being perceived as an animal consumed him, leading him to lament, was he an animal, that music could move him so? He felt as if the way to the unknown nourishment he longed for were coming to light. Eventually, when Gregor was found dead in his room, the cleaning lady discarded his body as if sweeping away an insect. Days later, his family, now free of the burden they believed Gregor to be, spent a day at the countryside, enjoying their newfound freedom. His sister, mother, and father moved on, pursuing their lives and careers without a thought for Gregor, the brother and son they had so easily abandoned. Franz Kafka was, in many ways, portraying his own life through the Metamorphosis, but the story delivers a broader, universal message. It reflects the cruel nature of the world, a world that uses individuals for its benefit, and once they lose their utility, discards them like a cockroach. This is why many philosophers have expressed disdain for reliance on society. Thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche, Albert Camus, Jean-Paul Sartre, and even Diogenes the Cynic have challenged societal norms. Diogenes, in particular, lived a life completely opposed to societal conventions, demonstrating that happiness can be found by rejecting society altogether and refusing to care about its judgments. The Metamorphosis explores numerous aspects of life, one of which is the absence of free will. From the very beginning, Gregor Samsa lacked autonomy over his own life. Initially, he was bound by societal norms and the responsibility of providing for his family. Though he worked tirelessly as a traveling salesman, it was evident that he disliked his job. Throughout the story, Gregor's thoughts reveal his frustration and dissatisfaction with his work. He never explicitly says he hates his job, but his internal monologue shows how trapped he felt. The relentless traveling and constant pressure to meet sales targets had worn him down. Yet, despite this exhaustion, he continued to work because he felt obligated to support his family. After his transformation into an insect, the little freedom Gregor had left was completely taken away. Now, even his physical movement was restricted. Initially, Gregor wanted to leave his room, but his father prevented him, often beating him to force him back inside. Over time, Gregor's sister began to advocate for his release, pleading with their father to let him go. Yet his father refused, driven by a deep sense of shame over Gregor's existence. This reflects how societal rules and expectations strip individuals of their freedom. People become entangled in countless obligations and challenges, leaving them little time to reflect on who they are and what they truly want. In today's world, the situation has not improved. Depression continues to rise as people juggle multiple jobs and still struggle to lead fulfilling lives. For many, coming home from work offers no relief. Exhausted from the day, they often face criticism from their partners or parents, further adding to their mental and emotional burdens. But why do we continue to live this way? Why do we sacrifice our freedom? It is out of shame. The misery of all the characters in the Metamorphosis stems from one profound emotion: shame. Gregor's father refused to let him leave or live freely, consumed by the fear of what others might think. His sister, Greta, eventually grew tired of caring for him, her frustration overtaking any initial compassion she felt. His mother, while still affectionate, found herself unable to look at Gregor. The memory of her sweet little boy replaced by his monstrous new form. Gregor, too, was deeply affected by shame. Ashamed of what he had become, he often hid under the bed or climbed the walls, desperate to avoid being seen. Initially, he held on to the hope that his family would eventually accept him. But as he overheard their conversations, he realized the enormous financial burden his transformation had placed on them. The shame of being unable to contribute to their livelihood broke him from within. Even his sales officer fled upon seeing Gregor as an insect. This chain of shame and rejection led to a household filled with despair. His mother weeping in a corner, his father and sister frustrated beyond measure, and Gregor spiraling into hopelessness. Ultimately, this overwhelming shame culminated in Gregor's death, a tragic outcome that might have been avoided had his family chosen to understand and accept him for who he was. Despite his outward form, Gregor was still human, not a threat, not a monster, just a soul trapped in a non-human body. This theme of shame brings my mind to Diogenes the Cynic, who famously lived a life free of societal expectations. He was an icon of shamelessness, urinating in public, dressing minimally, and even engaging in acts of self-pleasure openly. While such behavior might be extreme, Diogenes serves as a powerful example of how freedom from shame can lead to unparalleled happiness. He lived unbound by the opinions of others, and in doing so, found joy. Of course, the message here is not to abandon all societal norms, but to understand the immense power shame holds over our lives. It can elevate or completely devastate us, dictating our decisions and limiting our freedom. Shame compels us to constantly seek approval, silencing our true desires and preventing us from enjoying life's simplest pleasures. Consider how many times you've held back from doing something because of the fear of judgment or reputational damage. This is a reality for countless individuals, many of whom remain in jobs they dislike simply to earn enough to maintain a lifestyle approved by society. Shame acts as an invisible prison, locking us in cycles of self-doubt and fear. It forces us to conform, to prioritize appearances over authenticity, and to suppress individuality. This relentless pressure alienates us from our true selves and from meaningful connections with others. It even stifles open conversations about vulnerabilities, insecurities, and mental health. We hide our struggles not because they define us, but because society deems them as weaknesses. This suppression isolates us further, creating a world where shame robs us of joy, freedom, and the chance to live authentically. One particular moment in the Metamorphosis encapsulates this idea. When Gregor's sister Greta begins removing furniture from his room to turn it into a storage space, Gregor becomes deeply distressed. He climbs onto the portrait of a woman hanging in his room, clutching it tightly in a desperate attempt to save it. This portrait, an image of beauty and human connection, represented something more profound to Gregor. In his dismal state, the portrait was not just an object, it was a glimmer of hope. The beauty of the image reminded him of his humanity, sparking a fragile dream of returning to his former self and starting anew. It was as though this fragment of beauty gave him the courage to cling to life despite the overwhelming rejection and isolation he faced. It showed an innate aspect of human nature, the ability to find solace, strength, and hope in beauty. Even amidst despair, beauty can inspire us to believe in the possibility of transformation and renewal. Gregor's attachment to the portrait is symbolic of how beauty, in any form, can ignite a spark of hope, offering a respite from life's harshest realities. Through this act, Kafka shows that even in the most alienating and dehumanizing circumstances, the human spirit can find moments of inspiration. Gregor's connection to the portrait stands as a testament to the idea that beauty, whether found in art, nature, or fleeting moments of kindness, can offer us a reason to persevere. In this sense, Dostoevsky's statement becomes timeless. Beauty has the power to uplift and save us, even if only momentarily, reminding us of the humanity that remains within us, no matter how alienated we may feel. Kafka's story, though deeply tragic, offers this subtle yet powerful message. Even in darkness, beauty can be a beacon of hope.